The room was completely silent, except for the sound of machines. Beeping, steady, mechanical. The sound of a life being kept going by wires and tubes and the cold efficiency of modern medicine. Darnell Washington sat beside his daughter's hospital bed and watched her chest rise and fall. Rise and fall. Rise and fall. Like the ocean. Like breathing was the only thing left she could do without being asked. Serena Washington was 26 years old, president and CEO of Washington Enterprises, one of the most powerful privately held companies in the entire country. She had built her own division by 23. She had doubled company revenue by 25. She had a laugh that filled rooms and a mind that terrified boardrooms and a future so bright that people squinted just thinking about it. And now she was lying in a hospital bed in Atlanta Medical Center, tubes in her arms, a machine breathing for her, her natural braids spread across a white pillow like a crown with nobody left to wear it. The accident had been fast, wet road, late night. A truck that ran a light it should have stopped for. And just like that, one moment of someone else's carelessness had swallowed Serena Washington whole. Vegetative state, the doctors said. They said it gently. They said it with their faces arranged into expressions of professional compassion. But what they were really saying was this: we do not know if she is coming back. We do not know if she is in there. We do not know if anything we do will matter. Darnell Washington was 61 years old. He had buried a wife. He had built a company from nothing. He had survived things that would have broken men half his age. But sitting beside this bed, watching this machine breathe for his only child, he felt something crack open inside him that he knew would never fully close again. He stayed for 12 days without going home. On the 13th day, he made a decision. Now, before we go any further, before you say anything about what that decision was, I need you to understand something about Darnell Washington. He was not a foolish man. He was not a desperate man acting without thought. He was a father who had run out of roads and was now standing at the edge of something that looked like madness but felt, in his bones, like the only thing left. His late wife Claudette had believed certain things. Old things. Deep things. Things that could not be proved in a laboratory or verified in a medical journal, but that had been true in her family for as long as anyone could remember. She believed that the heart stays alive, even when the body sleeps. She believed that love, real love, the kind that shows up every day without being asked, could reach someone in the dark. She had made him promise in her final days that if anything ever happened to Serena, he would not let her be alone. Not really alone. Not the kind of alone that has no anchor. And so, on the 13th day, Darnell Washington called his assistant and said 4 words. Find her a husband. The announcement went out quietly. Internally first, through the Washington Enterprises employee network and its contracted companies. A brief, professional notice that somehow managed to be both completely dignified and completely extraordinary at the same time. It said that Chairman Darnell Washington was seeking a husband for his daughter Serena. That the candidate must be of exceptional character, hardworking, and genuinely committed. That significant compensation would be provided. That interested candidates should present themselves at the Washington Enterprises lobby the following Wednesday at 10 in the morning. That notice traveled fast. By Sunday evening, it had reached a cafeteria in the Washington Enterprises Security Contractor Building, where a man named Marcus Cole was eating a turkey sandwich alone. Marcus Cole was 28 years old, 6 feet tall, deep brown skin, low fade with sharp edges, a thin, neat beard along his jaw, and dark, quiet eyes that missed absolutely nothing even when they appeared to be seeing nothing at all. He worked security, had worked security for 8 years. He stood at gates and nodded at people who never nodded back. He drove a 12-year-old Toyota that rattled when it rained. He lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in southwest Atlanta where the radiator knocked every night at 2 in the morning, like a small, faithful clock. He was not rich. He was not connected. He was not the kind of man that rooms turned toward when he entered. But Marcus Cole had something that rooms full of wealthy men often didn't. He had character, bone-deep, daily, undramatic, unglamorous character. The kind that shows up when nobody is watching and nothing is being recorded and there is no reward attached. He helped his neighbor, Miss Irene, carry her groceries up 4 flights of stairs every Saturday without being asked. He remembered the name of every single person at his job site, the parking attendant, the cleaning crew, the woman who ran the afternoon food cart. He sent half his paycheck to his mother in Macon every month, rain or shine, feast or famine, without complaint and without credit. His coworker Devin, who was sitting across from him when the announcement was read, had a different approach to life. Devin believed in working smart, not hard, and in making sure people knew about the smart work he was doing. Devin was also the best friend Marcus had ever had, which is why Marcus tolerated the philosophy. "You are absolutely not thinking about this," Devin said, sliding the phone back across the cafeteria table. Marcus picked up his sandwich. "Marcus, I heard you, Devin. His daughter is in a coma. She is unconscious. This is not a normal situation." Marcus chewed, swallowed, set down his sandwich. "What kind of man would I be," he said quietly, "if I refused to help someone because they were at their lowest point?" Devin stared at him. "A normal one, Marcus. A completely normal one." Marcus did not answer. But that night, he ironed his best shirt with the particular care of a man who is preparing for something that matters. Wednesday arrived. Marcus got to the Washington Enterprises lobby at 9:45. He was the first candidate there. By 10 o'clock, there were 12 men in that lobby. Most of them were dressed better than Marcus. Several had business cards. One was wearing a watch that cost more than Marcus's car. Two were rehearsing things under their breath, actual rehearsals, lips moving, eyes going slightly blank the way people's eyes go when they are performing something they memorized. Marcus stood quietly near the window. He did not rehearse anything. He did not adjust his collar repeatedly or check his phone or size up the other men. He just stood and waited with the specific patience of a person who has spent 8 years watching for things that matter in the middle of things that don't. Chairman Darnell Washington arrived exactly at 10. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, deep ebony skin, close-cropped silver afro, full silver beard, red-rimmed eyes that were sharp even through the grief. He wore a charcoal suit and moved through the room with the careful steadiness of a man carrying something heavy and refusing to let it show. He spoke briefly about Serena, about what he believed, about what he hoped. He spoke without apology and without performance, and Marcus respected him completely for both of those things. One by one, the men stepped forward. The man with the expensive watch talked about synergies. Another talked about his MBA. A third kept steering the conversation toward the compensation package with the subtlety of a man who did not realize how clearly his priorities were showing. Then Marcus stepped forward. He had no card, no pitch, no rehearsed lines. He just looked at Darnell Washington and said, "Sir, I'm a security guard. I don't have a lot of money and I won't pretend I do, but I know how to show up for people. Every single day without being asked, without keeping score. And I will show up for your daughter like that every day until she comes home." The room was completely quiet. Darnell Washington looked at Marcus for a long time. "What's your name, son?" he asked. "Marcus Cole, sir." 3 days later, Marcus Cole stood in the Fulton County Courthouse and married a woman he had never spoken to. Serena Washington's photograph was placed beside him for the official record. In it, she was laughing, full and bright and completely real, the kind of laugh that cannot be faked because it takes over the whole face. Marcus looked at that photograph for a long moment before the judge began to speak. Devin stood beside him as witness and spent the entire ceremony in a state of emotional crisis that he would later categorically deny. When it was over, Marcus drove home in his rattling Toyota and sat in his apartment and looked at the wall. "Okay," he said to the quiet room, "I'm going to figure this out, Serena." He meant it. He had no idea yet how true it would become. That same evening, Darnell Washington summoned Marcus to his corner office on the 40th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows. Atlanta spread below like a map of everything Marcus had ever wanted and never said out loud. What happened in that office would have broken the brain of a lesser man. A navy blue box slid across the desk. Inside it, a watch, sleek, black-faced, no logo, expensive in the way truly expensive things are, without needing to announce it. A black card, matte, no name, no spending limit. "The Bentley in the garage downstairs is yours," Darnell said, "and I need you to take the CEO position at the firm we just acquired, Apex Solutions, Monday morning." Marcus sat very still. "Chairman Washington, I am a security guard." "I know what you are," Darnell said. "I also know what you're made of. Those are two different things." He leaned forward slightly. "Character is the rarest qualification there is, son. Everything else can be taught. The Washington name is behind you. Go as far as you can go." Marcus drove the Bentley home. He sat in the parking lot of his apartment building for 20 minutes without moving and said out loud to nobody, "This is absolutely wild." Monday morning, Apex Solutions, new title, new world. And standing in the lobby when Marcus arrived to collect his badge, his ex-girlfriend, Vanessa Clark. Vanessa was the woman Marcus had spent 8 months with before this story began. She was golden brown-skinned, stunning, with long sculptured box braids and deep plum nails, and the particular quality of someone who always knew exactly where the power in a room was and moved toward it the way a compass moves toward north. She had also, 3 weeks before the courthouse wedding, sat across a kitchen table from Marcus and demanded an additional $200,000 in bride price on top of the $300,000 he had already given her family. When he told her he had nothing left, that he had spent everything on a house, a car, jewelry, her family's demands, she had looked at him with cool, flat eyes and said that without the money, there was no wedding. Marcus had picked up his keys and walked out. She had called after him. He had not looked back. And now here she was, full-time employee, $20,000 a month, wearing the gold bracelet he had bought her. She stopped when she saw him. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows traveled all the way up. "Marcus, you rented a suit to come beg me back." The receptionist handed Marcus his badge. "Marcus Cole, CEO." Vanessa went completely still. "Have a good day," Marcus told her pleasantly and walked through the doors. But the real story, the one that would change everything, was not happening in the lobby. It was happening in room 412 of Atlanta Medical Center, where Serena Washington was lying completely still, and where, 4 days after the courthouse wedding, a single notification lit up on the phone that had been placed on her bedside table by her father, still charged every day by the nursing staff, just in case, just because Darnell Washington refused to accept that his daughter was entirely gone. The notification was a text. From her own phone, from inside that room, to a number that had just been added to her contacts. Her new husband's number. The text said only 3 words. "I can hear you." Marcus was in his new office when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Unknown number, 3 words. He read them twice. He sat completely still for 30 seconds. Then he grabbed his jacket and drove to the hospital. Before we go any further, if this story already has your heart racing, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on your notifications. Because what happens when Marcus walks into that hospital room is something you are absolutely not prepared for. Marcus Cole had been inside room 412 before. He had come every other evening since the wedding, changing out of his security uniform or his new CEO suit, driving across the city, sitting in the chair beside her bed. He talked. He always talked. About his day, about Devon's latest dramatic reaction to something minor, about the radiator in his apartment, about the Bentley he was still not comfortable driving. He left small handwritten notes on her bedside table, not love notes, just honest ones. Real ones. The thoughts of a man who had promised to show up and was keeping that promise even when there was no evidence it was received. He had told himself she couldn't hear him. He had been wrong. The door to room 412 opened at 7:40 in the evening. Marcus stepped inside. The room was the same as always: monitors, soft beeping, the particular institutional quiet of a place where time moves differently. Serena Washington lay in the bed exactly as she always did, braids spread on the pillow, face peaceful, chest rising and falling. But the phone on the bedside table was face up. And the screen was lit. Marcus crossed the room slowly. He picked up the phone, looked at the screen. Another message had been sent. From her own phone. You came. Marcus looked at the phone. He looked at Serena. She had not moved. Her eyes were closed. Her face was still. Every monitor read exactly as it always did. He pulled his chair close to the bed. He sat down. His hands were not shaking. Marcus Cole's hands very rarely shook, but his chest was doing something complicated. He typed back slowly. Hell. The response took 4 minutes. He watched the screen. When it came, it was slow, the spacing uneven, the letters slightly jumbled and then corrected, like someone typing with enormous effort and concentration. Phone is by my hand, one finger slow, but I can. Marcus stared at the screen for a long time. Then he typed, Does anyone know? No, only you. He sat with her for 2 hours that night. He did not tell the nurses. He did not call Darnell. Not yet. He needed to understand first, needed to be sure that what was happening was real and not something he was constructing out of desperate wishful thinking. He typed questions, simple ones at first. What is your mother's name? What is the name of the company your father started? What year were you born? She answered all of them, slowly, painstakingly. One letter at a time when she needed to, whole words when she could manage it. She was in there. She had been in there the whole time. It's like being underwater asterisk, she typed, near the end of that first night. I can feel everything. I can hear everything. I just can't make my body listen. Marcus read that 3 times. Something in his chest ached in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. I've been talking to you every visit, he typed. Did you hear any of it? The pause before her response was longer than the others. All of it, she typed, every word. The radiator story was my favorite. Marcus looked up from the phone, looked at her still face. Somewhere under that stillness, a woman was reading his messages and calling his radiator story her favorite. He pressed his lips together hard. Okay, he said quietly to the room. Okay, Serena. He typed one more message before he left. I'll be back tomorrow, and the day after that, you're not alone. Her response came just before he reached the door. I know, I could tell. That was how it began. Every evening for the next 3 weeks, Marcus came to room 412. And every evening, while the rest of the world saw a comatose woman lying perfectly still, Serena Washington was having conversations with her husband. She was sharp. That was the first thing that struck Marcus, how completely, startlingly sharp she was. No confusion, no fog, just a brilliant, frustrated, fighting mind trapped in a body that would not cooperate, communicating one painful letter at a time through a phone screen because it was the only weapon she had. She asked him about Apex Solutions within the first week. Tell me about the company, she typed one evening. Marcus settled back in his chair. Well, he said out loud, he had started doing that, talking and typing at the same time, so she had both. Your father handed me a CEO position I have absolutely no business holding. There is a VP named Raymond Gaines who had that chair marked for himself, and is now watching me sit in it and smiling at me in a way that makes me want to check my food for things. The phone buzzed. Raymond Gaines, she typed, be careful, very careful. He's been stealing from the company for 2 years. I found out right before the accident. I hadn't told my father yet. Marcus went very still. How much, he typed. Enough to hurt us. Shell companies, supplier kickbacks. He's been leaking our bidding strategy to competitors. I need you to find the proof. I can't do it from here, but you can. Marcus looked at her still face, then at the phone, then at her face again. You're running a corporate investigation from a hospital bed, he said quietly. Through a phone you're operating with one finger. The phone buzzed. Someone has to. Marcus put his head back and laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of him, the first real laugh he had had in weeks. It bounced off the clinical walls of room 412, and the monitors kept beeping and Serena Washington lay completely still. But the phone buzzed one more time. Was that a laugh? I've been wondering what your laugh sounds like. Marcus looked at the phone for a long moment. You'll hear it in person, he typed, when you wake up. I'm working on it, she typed back. Meanwhile, in the waking world, Marcus was navigating a building full of enemies. Raymond Gaines moved fast. On Marcus's very first morning, he had set a thick folder on the desk, a 40-page quarterly proposal for the East Side Commercial District that normally took a team of 5 people 3 full days, and told Marcus pleasantly that he needed it by end of day. Company schedule, Raymond said with his perfect empty smile. I'm sure you understand. Marcus understood completely. He sat down at 9 in the morning and started working. By 5 o'clock he had the proposal, all 40 pages. He handed it to a young intern named Kevin to deliver to Raymond's office. Kevin was intercepted in the hallway. The proposal changed hands, and when Raymond presented it the next morning to the assembled team, he presented it as the work of Vanessa Clark, who sat beside him with her box braids over one shoulder and her deep plum nails on the conference table and her eyes moving across to Marcus, waiting for the explosion. Marcus looked back at her calmly and smiled. She had not expected that. That evening in room 412, he typed everything to Serena. He stole your proposal, she typed, and even through the slow one-finger spelling he could feel the fury in it. First day, Marcus typed, it's fine, I have a witness, I'm building the case. Good, don't react, let him think he has you. That's exactly what I'm doing. You're smarter than you look, she typed. You've never seen my face, Marcus typed back. A pause, then, I've heard your voice for 3 weeks, that's enough. Vanessa Clark had wasted no time attaching herself to Raymond Gaines. She was his right hand now, his instrument, present in every maneuver he made. She had recognized Raymond's power the same way she recognized all power, immediately, instinctively, and with the specific intention of making herself indispensable to it. She cornered Marcus in a hallway one afternoon, voice soft and sympathetic. I've seen what people are saying about you, she said. This must be hard. I could help you, you know, talk to Raymond, smooth things over. Marcus looked at her. What would that cost me, Vanessa? She didn't answer, but her eyes said everything. I'll handle it myself, Marcus said and kept walking. That night he typed the conversation to Serena word for word. She's working with Raymond, Serena typed. Be careful of her. She knows where all the bodies are buried. She's been in that building for a year. I know what she is, Marcus typed. I knew what she was before this. The ex. Marcus paused. You heard that story. The bride price story. Yes, I heard it. Twice. You told it once to the nurse when she asked if you were okay and once out loud to yourself when you thought no one was listening. What did you think? Marcus typed before he could decide not to ask. The response took longer than usual. I thought, this is either the best man I've never met or the most interesting thing that has ever happened to me. Which one is it? Marcus typed. Still deciding, she typed. Come back tomorrow and I'll have more data. Raymond escalated steadily. He found out about Marcus's financial history, the debts, the lean years, the savings drained by Vanessa's demands, and began leaking stories. Fabricated screenshots suggesting Marcus had embezzled from the East Side project spread through the office channels overnight. By morning, the temperature of the whole building had changed. Marcus walked through it, steady, unhurried, collecting everything. From her hospital bed, Serena directed him. The shell companies are registered under Raymond's cousin. Her name is Patricia Gainsmore. She emigrated 3 years ago. Find the transfer records. How do you know all this? Marcus typed one night. I found it before the accident. I had a full file. It's in my home office. 3rd drawer, brown folder. My father doesn't know where I keep things. Does your father know you're communicating? A long pause. Not yet. I want to wait. I don't want to get his hopes up until I'm sure I can come back all the way. You will, Marcus typed. You don't know that. No, he admitted. But I know you've been running a corporate fraud investigation with one finger from a hospital bed for 3 weeks. If anyone is coming back all the way, it's you. The pause before her response was the longest yet. Marcus. Yes. Thank you for coming every day. You don't have to thank me, he typed. I told your father I would show up. I show up. I know, she typed. That's why I'm thanking you. The East Side project moved forward despite everything Raymond threw at it. Marcus visited the neighborhoods himself, sitting at kitchen tables, listening to residents, learning what they actually needed. He arranged community partnerships, appliance repair clinics, medical checkups. He built trust at ground level the way he had always built everything, person by person, day by day, without fanfare. The project that had failed 3 times began to succeed. Raymond, watching his plan to destroy Marcus through guaranteed failure unravel, escalated to something more direct. He arranged for someone inside the East Side component factory to tamper with the production line. Core parts swapped for defective ones. Pass rates dropped from 98% to 75%. A breach of contract clause was triggered, the kind of liability that could destroy a career. Marcus caught it because he visited the factory himself, because he looked at the ground level, because that was simply who he was. When the production supervisor called him, Marcus said, "Stop all production. Seal every defective part. I'm on my way." He drove to the factory. He reviewed the surveillance footage. He saw the figure accessing the backup warehouse. He picked up the phone. He did not call the police first. He went to room 412 first. He typed the whole story to Serena. Her response came back clear and fast, faster than usual, as if the urgency had given her fingers extra strength. The figure in the footage. Check the company-issued mask. We had a specific batch distributed 6 months ago. Only employees who were active then have them. Raymond has a list of who received what. That narrows it down. Yes, Marcus typed, it does. Go, she typed, I'll be here. The evidence came together the way storms come together, slowly, then all at once. The company-issued mask from the surveillance footage was traced to a list of 12 employees. Of those 12, only 3 had access to the specific section of the backup warehouse. Of those 3, 1 had received 2 large transfers into a personal account in the weeks before the sabotage, transfers originating from a shell company registered to a woman named Patricia Gainsmore, Raymond's cousin. The voice recorder found in the warehouse caught Raymond's voice giving instructions. The factory worker, when brought in for questioning, gave a full confession within 20 minutes, the particular speed of someone who was never fully committed to the crime and is relieved to have a way out. The audit department, following Serena's detailed directions passed through Marcus to her father, traced 37 instances of fund misappropriation across 14 months, supplier contracts with built-in kickbacks, bidding strategies sold to competitors, a second set of books so carefully constructed that it had survived 3 previous internal reviews without a single flag. Raymond Gaines had been very, very good at this. But he had never faced a CEO who was being directed by the person he thought was unconscious. The night before the formal investigators arrived, Marcus sat in room 412 later than usual. "We have everything," he said out loud and typed it at the same time. "Your father knows. The investigators are coming Wednesday morning. It's done, Serena." He watched the phone screen. "How does it feel?" she typed. Marcus thought about it honestly, like something that was supposed to happen, he said, like the whole thing was waiting to be found. "You found it." "We found it," he typed. "You directed every step." "We make a good team," she typed. Marcus looked at her still face, the braids on the pillow, the monitors steady and faithful. "Yeah," he said quietly, "we do." A pause, then the phone buzzed. "Marcus." "Yes." "I'm going to try something tonight, after you leave. The doctors said there might be some voluntary movement returning. I've been trying for 3 days. I haven't told anyone." Marcus sat forward in his chair. "What kind of movement?" "Just a finger, maybe a hand. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up if it doesn't work." "Don't push yourself too hard," he typed. "I've been waiting 3 months," she typed back. "I'm done waiting." Marcus stayed until the nurses asked him gently to go. He drove home in the Bentley. He sat in his apartment. He did not sleep. At 2:17 in the morning, his phone buzzed. A photo. Blurry, slightly angled, the way a photo looks when it is taken by someone who is still learning to control their hand again. But clear enough. It was her hand, Serena's hand, raised slightly off the bed, 2 fingers extended. The caption below the photo said, 2 fingers, working on the rest. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed in the dark apartment and looked at that photo for a long time. Then he typed, "I'll be there in the morning." "I know," she typed, "you always are." Wednesday arrived. Raymond Gaines walked into Washington Enterprises in his perfectly fitted charcoal suit, gold tie bar in place, his daily performance of untouchable confidence fully assembled and operational. He nodded at the receptionist. He nodded at 2 passing employees. He stepped toward the elevator. 2 plainclothes investigators stepped into his path. 3 members of the Washington Enterprises legal team materialized at his sides. Raymond tried smooth first, then reasonable, then outraged. His lawyer was called. Statements were prepared. Claims were made that the evidence was fabricated, that Marcus Cole had been running a vendetta, that Serena Washington's family was targeting a loyal employee out of grief-driven irrationality. Raymond was very good at reasonable. He had practiced it for years. But you cannot be reasonable your way out of 37 documented financial irregularities and a voice recorder that has your own voice on it. Marcus watched from across the lobby. Devin stood beside him in his new operations manager suit, which he had been complaining about since the day he got it and would never voluntarily give back. "Bro," Devin whispered, watching Raymond's face cycle through its expressions as the investigators spoke. "That's the moment right there. That's it." "That's it," Marcus confirmed. Raymond turned. His eyes found Marcus across the lobby with the specific quality of a man who has lost a game he did not know he was playing, and is only now understanding who his real opponent was. "You're still just a security guard," Raymond said, loud enough to carry. "You'll always be just a security guard." The lobby went completely quiet. Marcus looked back at him. He did not raise his voice. He did not tighten his jaw. He was simply there, fully, completely, unshakably himself. "I know who I am," Marcus said. "Do you?" Raymond was escorted from the building. Devin immediately turned to Marcus with an expression of pure reverence. "Bro, you have to teach me how to do that." "Do what?" Marcus asked. "That," Devin said, gesturing vaguely at all of Marcus. "That whole thing." Vanessa Clark resigned 4 days later, quietly, without drama, the particular exit of someone who has watched the person they underestimated win completely and has run out of moves. She sent Marcus one text from the parking lot on her last day. "I'm sorry for all of it." Marcus read it. He thought about the kitchen table, the bride price demand, the bracelet she was still wearing when she stood beside Raymond at the banquet. He thought about all of it. Then he typed back, "I hope things get better for you, Vanessa. I mean that." He did mean it. That was the thing about Marcus Cole that people like Raymond and Vanessa could never quite understand. His goodness was not performance. It did not turn off when the audience left. What Vanessa never found out was that her brother's surgery, which she had been desperately trying to fund, had been covered by an anonymous payment through the Washington Enterprises hardship account 2 days before her resignation. Serena had directed it from her hospital room. No name attached, no strings, no conditions. Just the check. 3 weeks after Raymond Gaines' departure, on a Thursday morning in November, Marcus's phone buzzed at 6:42 in the morning. He was in the kitchen of the Washington house. He had finally moved in at Darnell's quiet insistence, making coffee in his sweatpants with his low fade grown out at the edges because he had not rushed to cut it. The text said, "Come to the hospital. Bring my father. Don't drive fast. I don't need an accident." Marcus stared at the screen. Then he called Darnell Washington. "Sir," he said, "I think you need to come to the hospital." Darnell's voice came back immediately, sharp and awake. What happened? Is she? She's okay, Marcus said quickly. Sir, I think you just need to come. Room 412 was the same room it had always been. But when Marcus and Darnell walked through the door that morning, Serena Washington was not lying flat. She was propped up at an angle. Her eyes were open. They were dark and bright and completely, startlingly awake. The eyes of someone who has been listening to everything for 3 months and has stored it all up and is now finally able to look back at the world that has been moving around her. Darnell Washington made a sound that Marcus had never heard from him before, something that was not a word, something that was only a father seeing his daughter's eyes open for the first time in 3 months. He crossed the room in 3 steps and gathered her carefully into his arms and held her there, and said her name twice, and that was all he could manage, and it was enough. Marcus stood near the door. He had planned to stay near the door, to give them space, to be unobtrusive the way he had always been in rooms where other people were the main characters. But Serena Washington, over her father's shoulder, looked straight at him. It was the first time those eyes had ever looked at him. He had heard her voice in text for 3 months. He had read her intelligence, her fury, her humor, her stubbornness, her grace. He had sat beside her in the dark and talked and typed and come back every single day. He had never seen her look at him. It was a longer look than he expected. Direct and undefended and completely real. The look of someone who already knows you because she has been listening to you for 3 months and is now simply confirming what she already understood. Then the corner of her mouth moved. A small smile, tired, real, the first smile of a woman coming back to herself. Her voice, when it came, was rougher than he had imagined it. 3 months of disuse, but it was there, unmistakably there. The radiator, she said, quiet and hoarse and certain. You should get it fixed. Marcus looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled, a full, real, unguarded smile, the kind Devon had been trying to get out of him for years. I like it, he said. It reminds me of where I came from. Serena Washington looked at her husband, this man she had married as a photograph, this man who had shown up every day in an empty room and talked to her and meant it. This man who had found her proof and kept her secrets and never once asked for credit. And something in her eyes went quiet and warm and decided. Sit down, she said. We have a lot to talk about. Marcus sat down. The board meeting came 4 weeks later. Darnell Washington stood at the head of the table, silver-haired, upright, rebuilt in the way that men rebuild when something they almost lost comes home, and looked around the room. This company has been through something, he said simply. Betrayal, loss, and a fight that most people in this room didn't fully see being fought. He looked at Marcus. I am nominating Marcus Cole as permanent CEO of Washington Enterprises, effective immediately. Nobody objected. In the seat beside Marcus, Serena Washington, sharply dressed, natural hair in a protective updo, high cheekbones and steady bright eyes, and the full, alive presence of a woman who has come back from somewhere very far away, placed her hand over his on the table. Not dramatically, not for anyone else to see. Just quietly, just there. Marcus turned to look at her. You earned it, she said. We earned it, he said. She considered this. Okay, she said, we. 6 months later, on a warm Atlanta evening, they sat on the porch of the Washington house. The city glittered beyond the garden. Devon had texted Marcus 11 times that day about something that turned out to be a question about whether his new suit needed dry cleaning. Marcus's mother had sent a photo of her garden in Macon. She had been moved to a better place, comfortable and green and close to things she loved. Inside the house somewhere, the radiator knocked. Marcus had not fixed it. Serena, sitting beside him with her natural hair loose around her shoulders and a mug of tea in both hands, looked at him sideways. The radiator is doing it again. I know. You could fix it. I know. She looked at him for a moment. You're not going to, are you? No. She shook her head slowly. The way she did when she was pretending to be exasperated and was actually not exasperated at all. Then she looked out at the city and was quiet for a while. "Marcus," she said eventually. "Yeah. That first night when you got my text," she turned to look at him, "were you scared?" Marcus thought about it honestly. "No," he said. I don't know, something else. Like something that had been very quiet suddenly got loud." Serena looked at him. "That's exactly what it was like," she said quietly. "From my side, too." They sat there for a while longer after that, not talking, not needing to. The city glittered. The radiator knocked. The evening was warm and the garden was dark, and somewhere in Macon, a woman was photographing her garden to send to her son, and somewhere in an office building, Devin was still waiting for an answer about the dry cleaning. And on a porch in Atlanta, two people who had found each other through the strangest door the world had ever opened were sitting in the quiet of having arrived somewhere real. Moral of this story: there is a kind of person in this world that rooms look past. Not because there is anything wrong with them, not because they lack anything essential, but because they do not perform their worth. They do not announce it. They do not dress it up or sell it or make sure everyone in the building knows about it. They just show up, every day, without scorekeeping, without an audience, without a guarantee that it will ever be noticed or rewarded. Marcus Cole was that kind of person. He showed up to an empty hospital room and talked to a woman who the world had decided was gone. He showed up to a job he had no business holding and did the work anyway. He showed up for the residents of a neighborhood that a corporation had written off. He showed up for a young intern who was scared. He showed up for his mother in Macon. He showed up for his neighbor's groceries. He showed up. And Serena Washington, lying still in a hospital bed with only one finger and a phone screen between herself and complete isolation, heard him. Because quiet, faithful daily presence has a sound. It sounds like someone who means it. The world will try to tell you that the loud ones win, that the polished ones win, that the ones with the right suits and the right watches and the right connections win. But the ones who truly win, the ones who build something that lasts, are always the ones who showed up when nobody was watching. Keep showing up. The right people will hear you. They always do. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment below and tell us which moment hit you the hardest. We read every single one.